Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin.
2 months ago, to celebrate our 1,000-day anniversary, my girlfriend and I decided to go on a memorable glamping trip. Even though our budget was tight, I managed to book a newly opened glamping site in a remote town. Everything in the pictures looked like paradise until we actually got there. Contrary to its glamorous appearance, the interior was quite disappointing. In the photos, everything looked spotless. But when we stepped inside, the floor was peeling and looked unfinished. The owner claimed he had cleaned it 3 times before our arrival, yet I saw hair and some food wrappers scattered across the floor. Furthermore, when we asked for help lighting the charcoal for our evening BBQ, which we offered to pay extra for, the glamping owner just pointed to a torch lighter and a pile of charcoal already set up in front of the tent. He said, half jokingly, half seriously, "This stuff's easy, you can do it yourselves. Just let me know if you can't." Although his words seemed casual, his attitude was quite cold, as if he was trying to suppress annoyance. I felt uncomfortable, but with my girlfriend there, I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I just kept quiet. That evening, we had our BBQ. We breathed in the mountain air, sipped wine, and felt truly happy sharing that moment together. But the real problem started after we finished dinner and went inside to our room. First, the bathtub wouldn't drain properly. Then, when I lay down to sleep, I heard a loud flapping sound. I checked and realized it was the tent flap on the window, not properly secured, being blown by the wind. We couldn't sleep. It was a truly terrible night. You're probably wondering if I complained to the owner. No, I thought it would just escalate the tension. Instead, I left a 1-star review with honest comments. We cut our trip short to 3 days. Luckily, my girlfriend still felt okay about the trip overall. About 3 weeks later, I received a call from that owner. He apologized, saying he had been busy with the resort's soft opening and was late getting back to us. He claimed to have fixed the previous issues and offered us a complimentary stay voucher. I was grateful for his kindness, but also felt a little regretful for leaving the 1-star review. That weekend, we cleared our schedules and returned to the town. The interior of the resort really had improved, to the point where I wondered if this was even the same place we had stayed before. The owner even personally prepared a BBQ for us. His service was incredibly attentive, to the point of making us feel a bit uneasy. I found it strange. We were the only guests that day. When I asked about it, the owner casually said, "After that 1-star review, we were affected a bit." Seeing his nonchalant expression, I felt embarrassed and said I'd delete my old review and leave a 5-star one. But he replied, "No need anymore." His face, when he said that, was unusually cold. But just a second later, he returned to his friendly demeanor. "Enjoy your meal." I stared blankly as the owner walked away. Around 11 p.m., we were watching TV when we suddenly heard a rustling sound outside the window. I went to check, and a figure abruptly popped up. Both my girlfriend and I jumped and screamed. It turned out to be the owner. "I just wanted to check if you're enjoying the service." "We're enjoying it very much, thank you." "All right, I'll head back to my quarters. Just call if you need anything, okay?" He left, and this time, I started to feel genuinely uneasy. That night, my girlfriend woke up thirsty. I was drifting off to sleep when suddenly, a blood-curdling scream from my girlfriend jolted me awake. Rushing to her side, I was shocked to find a very large snake slithering across the floor. My girlfriend couldn't even stand. Luckily, she wasn't hurt. I quickly pulled her and we ran out, straight to the car. I tried to call the owner to deal with it, but he didn't answer. My girlfriend was completely panicked, crying hysterically, and demanding to go home immediately. I hesitated because I was practically naked, and all our belongings, including my phone, were still in the room. Suddenly, the owner appeared right outside, pressing himself against the car window. "Where are you two off to in such a hurry? You haven't checked out yet, have you?" I quickly opened the car door and jumped out, feeling incredibly frustrated. Do you know what's in that room? It's a snake. A snake? His indifferent attitude truly enraged me. How can you say that? Send our luggage in the room by express delivery or mail. We're leaving. Suddenly, he pulled out a knife and overpowered me, dragging me back into the glamping tent. My girlfriend stayed in the car, pleading continuously. We struggled fiercely in the room. I was injured on my arm and leg, and the bleeding made me weaker. He screamed like a madman. You come here, use all sorts of services, and then give me 1 star. Do you know how much damage you caused me? Now you're using this snake as an excuse to make me furious. I was terrified, planning to try and escape or find a place to hide. But he lunged and overpowered me, holding the knife to my throat. His tone shifted abruptly, full of perverse delight. You'll hit your girlfriend during an argument, and I, the witness, will get hurt trying to break you two up. As he spoke, the crazy man deliberately stabbed himself in his own thigh with the knife in his hand, blood gushing out. Then he turned and shoved the knife into my hand. Now everyone will pity me for being stabbed while trying to intervene. I was completely motionless, utterly stunned. Just then, the snake, which had been slithering on the bed, suddenly bit him with a fatal strike to his neck. He collapsed in pain, screaming loudly, "Snake? Why? Why is it here?" I was too terrified, so I crawled away trying to escape this horrific scene. The sound of police sirens echoed from a distance, and everything was quickly resolved. My girlfriend ran to me and cried uncontrollably. She had called the police. After the police investigation, everything became clear. Initially, I was very sure the owner had released the snake, but that wasn't the case. In reality, it was a hilly area where snakes frequently appeared, and that's precisely why he bought that plot of land for cheap. He's currently in intensive care and will face multiple charges once he recovers. My girlfriend and I were luckily safe. Since then, no matter how bad an experience is, we only leave reviews of 3 stars or higher. So please think very carefully before leaving a 1-star review, everyone.
I used to think a minor motorcycle accident in Vietnam was the only hiccup in my trip. But it turned out, the most terrifying thing quietly followed me back home, hidden deep within my own body without me ever knowing. In August 2014, I took a trip from Los Angeles to Vietnam. I had been looking forward to this vacation for months. The trip was fantastic. I tried so many street foods and took thousands of pictures. The incident happened in the second week. I rented a motorcycle to explore the suburban areas with their many rivers and streams. While riding on a crowded road, I collided with another vehicle. The impact wasn't strong, but it was enough for me to lose my balance and fall to the ground. My head hit pretty hard, causing a sharp pain. The other driver stopped to check on me, but I got up and said I was fine. There was just a small bump on my forehead. I refused to go to the hospital, thinking it was just a minor concussion. By the next day, I felt completely fine. I went swimming in a river near my hotel. The river water was crystal clear. I dove in, feeling the coolness spread through my body, along with the distinct, damp, earthy smell of the tropics. I stayed in the water for about 30 minutes, occasionally diving deeper. After swimming, I felt much more invigorated. 2 days later, I ended my vacation and flew back to Los Angeles. On the plane, during takeoff, I started to feel a little uncomfortable in my nose. Throughout the 16-hour flight, I kept blowing my nose, but the stuffy feeling wouldn't go away. I got home and just wanted to rest, hoping a deep sleep would make me feel better. The next day, I woke up and found my pillow stained with blood. My nose had bled during the night. I was worried, but still thought it might be due to the motorcycle collision. The bleeding continued throughout that day, and I decided to go to the hospital. The doctor said it was likely due to a sudden climate change, and prescribed me an ointment to keep my nose moist. I went home, hoping the situation would improve. But 3 days later, the bleeding continued. It wasn't just flowing out. It was also flowing down my throat, making me constantly cough and spit. I started to feel my body weakening from blood loss and had trouble breathing. While trying to wipe the blood, I accidentally touched the inside of my nose and felt something strange. When I tried to touch it, a sharp, intense pain shot through my head. I screamed and collapsed to the floor, my hands still clutching my nose. It took a few minutes to regain my composure. I decided to drive myself to the hospital, my face and hands covered in blood. I was quickly escorted into an emergency room. A young female doctor came in with a small light on her forehead. She asked me to tilt my head back and breathe through my mouth. The doctor's eyes went from normal to wide, as if she had just seen something horrific. "Oh my God," she said. The look of horror on her face made me scared and confused. I sat up, my hands trembling. "What is it? What's in my nose?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped outside the door and called out loudly, "I need doctor. David here immediately. Emergency." I sat alone in the room, imagining the worst-case scenarios. The seconds of waiting felt like an eternity. In that very moment, I felt something move in my nose. A moment later, an older doctor walked in. He, along with 2 nurses, prepared instruments and medication. I became even more terrified. "I'll need to pull it out. This will be a very uncomfortable process," the doctor said. I lay down on the bed, feeling like the whole world was spinning. He shined the light into my nose, and I saw the expression on his face change too. Not surprised like the previous doctor, but intense concentration. "It's quite large, and it's still alive," he told the nurse. The doctor carefully inserted the forceps into my nose. I felt intense discomfort, gripping the side of the bed, trying to stay still. "I see it!" My God, it's big. I felt something in my nose moving. The continuous sharp pain made me clench my teeth. "All right, try to bear with it." He started pulling slowly. I felt like someone was cutting inside my skull with a knife. The intense pain made me scream, unable to hold it back. And then, in one horrifying second, I felt something long and slimy being pulled out of my nose. When I opened my eyes, I saw it. A black creature, and it was still alive. I stared at the creature. I felt the whole world spinning. This was the thing that had been living inside me for over a week. This was the thing that had been feeding on my blood. The doctor placed it in a container. The creature was still squirming, leaving bloody smears on the sides of the box. Only a thin layer of bone prevented it from reaching your brain. I was speechless, lying still on the bed, feeling as if I had just escaped a nightmare. Now, 3 years later, I still check my nose every day. Every time I feel congested or uncomfortable, I get scared. It was a terrifying experience I will never forget. I no longer dare to carelessly ignore unusual signs from my body, and I will never swim in unfamiliar rivers or streams again. It all began with an invitation from a stranger. We just wanted a summer vacation full of memories, but we unknowingly stepped onto the thin line between luck and tragedy. To this day, I still don't understand how I escaped that situation. All I know is, if we had been a few minutes slower, I might not have had the chance to tell this story. The story starts with a summer vacation to London with my best friend, Lizzie. We decided to treat ourselves to a trip to Europe before starting college. The first 2 days of the trip, we made the most of our time, having fun, exploring, and taking hundreds of photos. On the third day, we were strolling on Oxford Street when we met someone. He approached us and introduced himself as Adrian. Adrian was tall, with curly brown hair, blue eyes, and a smile that made my heart beat faster. His voice sounded warm and charming. Adrian talked about an amazing party that night at his friend Simon's super luxurious apartment. The address was in Mayfair, an upscale area near Hyde Park. Lizzie glanced at me with excited eyes. I was a bit hesitant, but Adrian seemed really serious and polite. Plus, we were in London, and an opportunity like this doesn't come around easily. When Adrian assured us of our safety and mentioned his friend worked in finance, living in one of London's most secure areas, we accepted Adrian's invitation. That evening, I wore a simple black dress, and Lizzie chose a striking red outfit. Before leaving, we drank vodka in our hotel room to get a little buzz. The slight dizziness from the alcohol somewhat eased my initial anxiety. We called an Uber to the address Adrian had sent. Adrian greeted us at the apartment door with a beaming smile. The elevator took us up to the 23rd floor. The hallway was completely silent. No music or laughter echoed out. When we stepped inside, the space was empty, with no sign of any other guests. When Lizzie asked, Adrian explained that we had arrived a bit early and Simon was in the lobby picking up guests. I glanced around the apartment. It was indeed luxurious, with large glass windows offering panoramic views of London at night. But the space was too quiet and isolated. Just then, the sound of a key turning in the door echoed. Another man walked in, taller and more imposing than Adrian, with a stern face and cold eyes. Unlike Adrian, he didn't smile. Adrian introduced him as Simon, but I noticed the tension in his voice. Simon merely gave a brief nod, then walked straight to the front door. The sound of the lock clicking shut made my heart almost stop. When I asked again about the other guests, Adrian replied they would arrive soon, but his eyes were no longer warm like before. He offered to make us cocktails. He even emphasized how good they were. Simon stood silently by the door like a guard, never taking his eyes off us. Lizzie and I exchanged glances. I saw the fear in her eyes. We don't drink. Could we just have some water? I suggested. Cocktails will be much better. I've prepared special glasses for you girls already, Adrian insisted, his voice a little harder. I smiled faintly, feigning agreement, then pulled out my phone, pretending to text, but actually opening my emergency call app. My hand trembled as I dialed the police, then slipped the phone into my pocket without hanging up. Adrian disappeared into the kitchen. I tried to stay calm and said, "Oh, this penthouse is on the 23rd floor of 89 Kensington Gardens Square, right? What a beautiful view. Simon, you have excellent taste." Simon still stood by the door, his eyes unwavering. I gave a forced smile and turned away. Very quickly, Adrian emerged from the kitchen with 2 pink cocktails in his hands. He constantly swirled the glasses gently with a slight smile and told us to drink them, saying we'd feel more comfortable. His voice sounded more like a command than an invitation. We took the drinks. I noticed a fine white residue at the bottom of the glass that hadn't fully dissolved. Lizzie saw this too, and she looked at me with wide, horrified eyes. To buy time, I suggested we play Would You Rather. Simon reacted coldly, calling it a childish game. Lizzie, calmer than I expected, joined in and asked if we should drink the cocktails immediately or wait for the other guests. Adrian gave a forced smile, but his eyes were incredibly cold. He stared intently at Lizzie and answered, emphasizing each word. "Of course you drink the cocktails now." The feeling of dread reached its peak, and I screamed my refusal. I said we wanted to go back to our hotel. Simon spoke for the first time, his voice deep and menacing. "You two can't leave." Just then, a furious banging erupted at the door. A loud, booming male voice shouted, "Police! Open up!" Simon and Adrian exchanged terrified glances. The banging on the door grew louder and louder. Lizzie clutched my hand tightly, both of us trembling uncontrollably. The door burst open, and 3 police officers stormed in. Lizzie screamed with all her might, "Help us!" I pointed directly at Adrian and Simon, explaining they had forced us here, wouldn't let us leave, and had tried to make us drink something suspicious. Adrian and Simon were handcuffed and led away in silence. The test results 2 days later confirmed what we had suspected. Both cocktails contained a sedative commonly used in date rape. If we had drunk them, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Adrian admitted this wasn't the first time he'd done this. Simon was a long-time accomplice. Both received severe sentences, especially after police discovered many other previous victims. We stayed in London for a few more days, but we no longer had the same spirit of exploration. Lizzie often woke up startled in the night, and I suffered from complete insomnia. The trip, from being a beautiful memory, turned into an unforgettable nightmare. Now, whenever someone asks about my London trip, I just say it was a memorable experience. I learned that attractive appearances and sweet words can hide the darkest intentions. Some memories, no matter how much you want to forget them, will stay with you for life as a valuable lesson about trust and the instinct for survival.